Universal can get pretty busy, so today I'm sharing 14 tips to avoid the crowds and have a better visit when you come to Universal Orlando Resort. The first tip is actually about the interactive wands in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So if you're wanting to go to Ollivander's, they select one person and the wand chooses the wizard. It's a much faster to do that in Diagon Alley than Hogsmeade. Diagon Alley actually has double the capacity. Another tip, if you're not looking for the full experience and you just want to purchase an interactive wand, you can go to Wands by Grigorovich right behind me, and it's the same interactive wands with little to no wait. Let's go to the next tip. So there are nighttime shows at both Universal Studios Florida and Islands of Adventure that take place on select night. At Universal Studios Florida, it's Universal's Cinematic Celebration, and then at Islands of Adventure, it's a Hogwarts projection show. My tip actually isn't about going to see the shows, it's actually about going to experience certain rides while the shows are taking place. So it's usually a great time to get a last ride in. Things like Forbidden Journey, where everybody's outside of the castle just watching the show. Usually Forbidden Journey's wait time goes down. You do have to navigate a little bit of a crowd to get into Forbidden Journey, but once you get in, the wait time is much lower. Over here, things like Gringotts, Mummy, stuff like that, it's a great time to ride because a lot of people are over at the lagoon in the viewing area right behind me watching the show. If you don't listen to my final tip in this video, you are essentially shark bait. You don't want to be shark bait. Keep watching and I'll show you my best tip to avoid the crowds. My next tip is to eat at off-peak times and or make a reservation. So I would define off-peak as like 10:30 to like 11:15 or maybe after 2:30 as to lunch, and then, you know, dinner the same thing, probably before like 7 or after like 9:30. Or make a reservation, or both. Reservations are a lot more, I feel like, necessary for these restaurants now. So you can use the Universal Orlando website to make a reservation, nice and simple. My favorite at City Walk is Big Fire, so that'd be the one I recommend. But no matter where you go, most of them accept reservations, and I'd consider making one. If you're visiting during a really busy time of year, like the middle of July, I would 100% recommend arriving early, at least 30 minutes before the park opens. If you have early park admission, I would 100% take advantage of that, and I'd arrive like 30 minutes before early park admission is scheduled to begin. If you're staying at a Universal Orlando Resort hotel, early park admission allows you to enter at least one of the theme parks, Islands of Adventure or Universal Studios, an hour before the parks open to daytime guests. Sometimes during really busy times, they even allow it for both parks, so you get to choose between the two. It will set you up for much more success if you're arriving before the majority of people. The majority of people are arriving between probably like 9:30 and 10:30. It looks like floodgates opening, whereas if you can arrive, you know, 8:30, 7:30, you'll be in a much better position. In the summer, it's going to thunderstorm more than likely in the afternoon, and a lot of times Universal's Volcano Bay, you can see the poster behind me for Volcano Bay, which is their water theme park. A lot of times when the thunderstorms come, you know, the slides are going to close and everybody's going to leave the park. And most of the summer, Volcano Bay is actually open pretty late, like 8 or 9 p.m. And so my next tip is when you see a thunderstorm, I would consider heading to Volcano Bay once the thunderstorm clears. Or if you're at Volcano Bay, I'd consider staying there because you can really, really maximize your time at Volcano Bay with very minimal people after a thunderstorm rolls through Central Florida. So this tip is a little bit more obvious, but Universal does sell express passes. Here's an ad for it. This is a great place to buy it because there's never a line back here to buy express passes, whereas in the front of the park it's always busy. So express passes reduce your wait pretty significantly most times of the year. I'd say the only exception, Halloween Horror Nights, sometimes it only reduces your wait by about 50% is what they say. So just keep that in mind because the Halloween Horror Nights waits can get pretty long. But on a normal day, express passes usually allow you to breeze through the lines, save you a lot of time. Of course, they do cost a lot of money, so just something to keep in mind. And it's worth noting, if you're staying at Hard Rock Hotel, Lowe's Portofino Bay Hotel, or Lowe's Royal Pacific Resort, your room key works as Express Unlimited at Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure. It does not work at Volcano Bay, but they do sell a separate Express option at Volcano Bay. If you're just purchasing Express, they do offer it in like 1 park, 2 park varieties. Volcano Bay is separate, and then they also offer a one-time per attraction versus an unlimited option where you can do it as many times. Certain attractions aren't included though, like Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. Next up, single rider lines. So select attractions have them. I would consider using them if you're trying to minimize your wait at specific attractions. Transformers would be a good one. You can use the single rider line. Also, it's worth noting not every single rider line is always open at each attraction. There's some attractions where you probably don't want to use the single rider line. And those are attractions where it's 2x2 seating. So Rip Ride Rocket, Velocicoaster, things like that where it's rows of 2. you probably don't want to use the single rider line just because the single rider line tends to move really slow. Whereas something like Transformers, where it's rows of 4, there's more opportunities for single riders to get placed in a seat. If you're not familiar with the single rider line, essentially, like if it's a row of 4 like Transformers and it's a party of 3, they put one single rider on one of the sides so that they have a full row. So it can really help reduce your wait time. So first thing in the morning, right now it's 11 a.m. and it's still super busy. Look at everybody coming in behind us. You want to head to the back of the park first when you arrive. So you want to go to somewhere like Diagon, even Men in Black. Men in Black will be absolutely empty. Or in the other park, Velocicoaster, Hagrid, Forbidden Journey, stuff like that. You want to go straight to the back, don't go to the front. People always go straight to Despicable Me. You don't want to do that. So there aren't a ton of like completely slow days anymore, but there are days that are slower than this. We're filming this in the middle of July, you know, one of the busier times of the year to visit theme parks. It's very hot. So a lot of people are here because this is the only time of year they can visit. You know, if you're a teacher, you know, you have children, things like that. Summer vacation, obviously, there's a lot of people here for a reason. However, if you can consider visiting another time of the year, it might be worth considering. Each season has its own pros and cons to think about. I really like fall and winter myself. But it's just kind of up to you. We do have a crowd calendar on OrlandoFormer.com where you can kind of see a estimated forecast of the crowd on any given day. So that might be beneficial when you're picking your date. If you do have to come in the summer or a busy time, hopefully these tips are helpful to you though. My last tip has to do with the outside rides, and I have never seen it on any video or website before. Keep watching and I'll tell you. So if you're arriving early, my next tip is to take a midday break. You have a few options as to what to do during your midday break, but one option is Universal's new escape room. If you're visiting this fall or later, it should be open. They have a Back to the Future escape adventure, and they also have a Jurassic World adventure. It looks like it'll be a lot of fun. Of course, it's not open yet, as you can see at the time of filming this. And then if you're staying at a Universal Orlando hotel, another option that I always recommend is just heading back to the hotel. You can take a midday nap. If you're like me, you don't enjoy napping, so another option would be the pool. There's lots of great pools depending on which Universal hotel you're staying at. So that is my next tip. If you're arriving early, take a midday break when the crowds are at their heaviest and the heat's at the highest. Aventura is right behind me, so let's talk about when to check into your hotel. So it'll depend on the arrival pattern of when more people are coming to the hotel or not, because not every day is the same. However, generally the check-in time's 4, and I probably wouldn't check in right at 4. I would check in a little bit earlier or a little bit later, and when you do so, they can hold your bags if your room's not ready. So you could check in at noon. They'll be happy to hold your luggage if your room's not ready, and then you can still get your express pass if you're staying at a hotel that includes that, but if not, you can still go to the park and enjoy it while they hold your luggage. So that would be my tip. Don't check in right at 4. Let's talk transportation between the Universal hotels and City Walk. So if you're staying at one of the Universal hotels, they all include transportation while the theme parks are open. Some of the higher end hotels offer water taxi transportation, whereas the other hotels offer shuttle bus transportation. Typically, my rule of thumb is if the line to get on either the water taxi or the bus, especially the water taxi, is longer than one water taxi worth of people, I typically choose to walk. With the buses, you're probably still going to want to take a bus because, especially like in the summer, like walking isn't really feasible. And Cabana Bay is still a pretty big walk. But these hotels like Sapphire Falls, Royal Pacific, especially Royal Pacific and Hard Rock, if the line to get on the water taxi is longer than what's going to fit on a single water taxi, I would prefer just to walk. Whereas other times, and that'll happen like at 9 a.m. when the park's closed, things like that is when the water taxi line is going to be the longest. Whereas when it's not, you can just ride. But when it is, I would just walk. It'll save you probably 10 minutes or so. When you arrive at Universal Orlando, if you're not staying at one of the hotels, you're going to have a few parking options. So there's regular parking, which is $27, but then there is also what they call prime parking, which is currently $60. And I say currently because the prices do change seasonally and annually as well. But currently prime parking is $60, and prime parking allows you to park on the same floor as City Walk is on. So you're usually on level 3. Rarely you're on level 4, but generally, so it's like marginally closer. I don't know if I'd personally upgrade to prime parking. There is another option that does save you a lot of time, and that is valet. So valet, of course, is a little bit more expensive than that, but it does get you a lot closer. So before 6 p.m., it is $27 for 2 hours, or $75 for over 2 hours. And then after 6, it is $40 for over 2 hours and $50 for over 2 hours on a Mardi Gras concert night. And so valet parking puts you like right to my right. It puts you a lot closer to the park. Here it is, my final tip of the day. So this one I haven't seen on any other YouTube channel or any website, unless I've said it in another video. Hopefully I haven't. I don't think I have. Okay, so here's what it is. Throughout the summer especially, but all time of the year, you know, you might have a lightning storm come and close the outdoor attractions. They'll close until lightning's left the area and it's safe to reopen the attractions. However, when you're reopening a ride, sometimes it takes longer for some rides than other rides. One of the fastest rides to return to operation after a lightning storm leaves the area is Dr. Doom's Fearfall behind me, right over there. So what I usually do is I usually go on the Universal app and I either refresh it, or you can even set an opening alert for Dr. Doom's Fearfall. And when Dr. Doom's Fearfall is opening, it means the other attractions are really close to opening, but they usually don't open at the same time because Dr. Doom is easy to reopen. So typically what I'll do, once I get the opening alert for Dr. Doom's, I'll head straight to Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure or Velocicoaster, one of the two most popular attractions at Islands of Adventure that will also have been closed for lightning, and you'll be able to ride them with little to no wait because you'll be right there when they reopen. And that's a way to avoid the crowds. Hey, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, I'll leave another one right here. Mistakes to avoid when you visit Universal. These are mistakes you absolutely do not want to make. I'll leave it right over here.